ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your president of Rovia, Mr. Jim Mann.
I always look forward to coming and spending time at events because I feel like, there's so many opportunities that we have to talk about things that are important to us. For me, one might think that what's important to me is talking about travel, but in this case, what's important to me is talking about what travel matters to all of us. So when Mark was up here earlier and he talked about travel membership, and we talk about the product, and we talk about, selling and who we are and what we do, it all wraps together. And so I feel honored and blessed that I get to be here with you and talk about something that's important to me, that I'm passionate about, and that's something that you talk about on a daily basis if you do what Mark talks about. So I'm going to do a couple of things different today. Mark actually gave me a little bit of extra time, so I'm going to talk about why I'm here. Okay, so I'll do that for a few minutes. I'll talk about Rovia and what's happening today, and then I'm going to share two things that are new that nobody else at World Ventures has heard until tonight. They heard about it yesterday at the IC, but we'll mix it up a little bit. All right, so let's go here. What do we have? All right, so I'm going to talk about aspiration for a minute. Is that all right? Okay, so I mentioned last night that I started with World Ventures about 4.5 years ago, and I went to United in Las Vegas, and in a month, I really wanted to understand this thing. I wasn't a part of network marketing, direct selling. All I saw was a lot of people who got really excited about this whole thing called World Ventures. I wanted to do everything that you do. I wanted to go to the United. I wanted to go to the events. I wanted to go to the Super Saturdays. I wanted to go to regional trainings. At World Ventures offices on Thursday nights, Matt Morris or some of these guys come in there and they have, 40 or 50 people. I went to everything that I could to learn about what this thing is that you do. And so about a month after I started, I was in Los Angeles, and they were doing these regional trainings. In the U.S., at the time, they did about 20 on a Saturday 6 times a year. So 6 months out of the year, when they weren't doing big events, they were doing these regional trainings. They had about 20 cities. They had about, they had them in different, big, like a couple thousand people to a few hundred. In Los Angeles, there were about 300 people. So I went there. I had a sport coat on, which was way overdressed. Everyone was in shorts. And so I sat in the back row with everyone else over 40. There were like 6 of us. And so the Chris Mayberry, I don't know if you guys know Chris, but Chris was there. You know Chris? Some of you know Chris. And Chris was up there talking, and he was the first speaker. And this lady was sitting next to me, and very professionally dressed, and so Chris was talking about, how his whole, as a teenager and as a young adult, the kind of life that he wanted to live, and he talked about this thing we did at the time in the U.S. called a $69 cruise, and it was a marketing thing. We had, 200-300 cabins, and we would put them online, $69 cruise, and, every week, or every month, it would crash the system because so many people were trying to get on this $69 cruise. So he'd talk about it, and then he would, every time he said it, man, the people screamed, man. They were like screaming about this $69 cruise thing. And and every time they screamed, this lady sitting next to me like withered. Like she was like, oh no, right? So after Chris was finished speaking, she was putting her things in her bag to leave. And I said, are you leaving? And she said, yeah, this thing isn't for me. And I said, okay, well, hang on a second. And she saw me, and I was in a sports coat, like I said. And she's like, well, it doesn't look like it's for you either. I said, no, I actually work for this company. And I said, but I'll make a deal with you. If you'll stay Now, I'd been an employee for a month. I was the vice president. I was in charge of the product at the time. And I said, if you'll stay, I'll give you your money back. I'll buy your lunch if you just tell me everything you hate about this. Okay? So she looks and she says, are you married? And I said, yeah, why? And she says, because I can't get my husband to take me to lunch and let me complain. So for those men out there, it's a free tip. Okay? So she stayed the whole day. She was like a professional. She had one of those big notepads, the really long ones, not the short ones, but the long ones. Not the little ones at the hotel room, but like the really long ones, And man, she was like flipping pages, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of reading. But at the end of the day, she told me, kind of everything that, the ceiling was too low. I'm not a $69 cruise person. I run a company. I have 2,000 employees, and she said, this whole thing just isn't for me. And I said, so if we were doing this at the Beverly Hills Hilton, and we had champagne and not bad coffee, and that would work for you. And she said, yeah, I could sell that all day. So I said, okay. So she looks and she says, but you still didn't tell me why you're here. And I said, look, in the room here, there's about 300 people. The average age is 35. And where else in America, in the U.S., would you find 20,000 people in one day in 20 cities who are learning a new life? They're learning a new way of running a business. They're learning, they're not wanting to be typical corporate heads, right? They're wanting to learn something new. What other company does that? As far as I know, still today, I don't know of another company that does that. Teach you how to build a company, how to pay taxes, how to cold call, how to handle rejection, how to learn about a product, how to sell, how to do all of that. And they do that on these RTEs on Saturday. So I was explaining that. She says, yeah, but that doesn't explain why you're here. And I said, I run the product part of this thing, and if I could just build a better product, or if I could build a product that these folks in the room won't have to worry about selling, then I will have done my job. And I feel that way today. I feel that way every time I speak to members, I speak to reps. And for me, my goal every day that I wake up and I get a chance to go into the office is to build a better product. So I want to say thank you for that. I want to say thank you for doing what you do. So I said to her, every time, so she's like, well, what's the deal with that $69 cruise thing? And I said, every time he says $69 cruise and these people go crazy, right? That's what they can see in their brain, right? So I'm going to pause my story there. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. The $69 cruise was what these people could see that they could do, right? That was their aspiration. That was what they felt like they could do at the time. This picture here, if you could throw the slide up, this is a picture. I grew up in Miami, Florida, and this is a picture on the bottom left of a fence. And on the weekends, I used to ride my bicycle from my house about 5 miles to that fence. And I would put my bike up against the fence. This was in the days where you wouldn't get in trouble by the cops for it. But and I would stand on top of my bicycle and just watch these planes for hours, 5, 6, 7 hours. And I would look at these planes and I would man, who are the people on these planes and why aren't I on that plane, right? And I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And my brothers and I, we would go. And I would think, where is this plane coming from? And, where is this plane going? I aspired to be on that plane. And today, when I fly into Miami and the plane lands, I look out there and I see the fence and I think, I imagined one day that I would be on there. And so I want to talk about aspiration for a minute. I want to talk about, I'm going to come back to my story about Deborah. Deborah is the lady who was sitting next to me. But I want to talk about the product that's travel, and I want to talk about how you view people who travel. So this that I'm going to show you now is something that I started working on, and this is how I view people when they start talking to me. Do you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Y'all heard of that? At the bottom, it's like, man, I gotta be safe somewhere, and I have to have food. And the next one up is, I have to have friends. The next one up is I have to have self-esteem. And the next one up is, I gotta be good, or have some sort of who I am. And then the last one is this thing called self-actualization, right? That I recognize who I am and what I do. So this is called the traveler hierarchy. The first one are people who travel because they have to, right? I work, I travel, I have to travel for my work. And these people usually get to the airport and they're in a hurry. They're not usually happy people. I mean, they're happy people. Maybe they're happy people, but it's not like, man, I'm getting ready to get on another airplane. Woohoo, right? These people are like getting on planes because they have to. So the next one up is elective travel, right? People who are traveling because they're going somewhere for a purpose, like a wedding or to visit family or friends or those kinds of things. In others, there's this date that something's happening, and they're traveling because they elect to travel. They want to go to these places. And I sit next to these people, and they're generally like excited about where they're going. I always have an interest in why people travel. So that's kind of where this came from. I'm going to visit some friends, or I'm going on a vacation or something. People who are enthusiastic about traveling, right? These are people who, they're going on a vacation somewhere. They're going somewhere that, they had some time. They're going on a holiday. They're like, man, I am excited about where I'm going. I'm looking forward to getting away. Looking forward to y'all like that one, right? Yeah? Okay. A lot of you were that way? Okay. All right. 2 people. All right. And then the last one is visionary kind of travel. So for me, this is a kind of travel where we create the kind of travel that we want to take. Anton, stand up a second. So Anton here, I met Anton 4 years ago. And Anton calls me one day and he says, hey, man, I want to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Can you make that happen? Sure. So what did we do? We created a trip because Anton said, I have a vision, and that's what I want to do. And how many people went on that first one? How many? 16 people went, and 16 people made it to the top, right? Yeah, thank you. So Anton finds out I'm here. He's like, hey, can we go to like Mount Everest, or we can go like a bigger mountain next time? Or sure, man, I'll work on that as soon as I get done. So this is visionary kind of travel, right? People who create what they want to do and how they travel and what kind of travel motivates and inspires them. I consider travel at this kind of, you can have an epiphany. I've been on trips where I go somewhere, and because of what that experience was like, something changes in me. Something changes. I have a different kind of purpose. And when I talk about aspirational travel, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of travel on a dream trip, or a trip that you go on your family, or a trip that you take by yourself, where you create the kind of experience that will cause you to be different, cause you to be better, cause you to have a story, cause you to go home and talk about it. All right? For me, I realized when I landed at Miami, I was at Miami Airport 2-3 weeks ago, and I always get a window seat when I fly to Miami. Usually I take an aisle seat, on short flights. It's just easier to get in and out. Longer flights, or when I fly to Miami, I take a window seat. Why? I make sure that I sit on the side of the plane where I could see the fence that I used to put my bicycle up against and watch planes come and go. So I've traveled over 2 million miles, over 100 countries, 6 continents. I've taken planes, trains, I've taken buses, I've cruises. 10 years ago, I walked across Spain. There was a pilgrimage, and so I took 30 days and walked across Spain. That changed my life. And I decided at that point I didn't want to work for a company anymore. I worked for 22 years at American Airlines, and I decided, yeah, that was long enough. And it changed my life. I parachuted out of planes. I bungee jumped off the tallest building in the world on, there's like this little mattress at the bottom that's supposed to do something. But, I was there. I was speaking at a company conference and on risk in business. And so they're like, hey, speaking of risk, man, the tallest building bungee jump in the world. And I was like, yeah, great, go for it. And they were like, no, man, we're going to go there and we can bungee jump. So So the CEO of the company went. He's like, dude, are you really going to bungee jump? And I was like, sure. So have you guys bungee jumped before? Yeah, awesome, man. So you know how great that is, right? So we're up at the top, and he's on the phone with his wife. And this is in Macau, near Hong Kong. And he's on the phone. Yeah, honey, I know I'm stupid. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. You know, I know I have kids. Yeah, I know, right, all that. He's like, are you going to call your wife? And I was like, what, are you stupid, man? So I put the suit on. You know, they wrap my legs around it, and they jump off the building. It was like a cloud, so you couldn't see the bottom. I don't know if it's better to see the bottom or not see the bottom, but it wasn't like I had a choice. And then the cloud was like that thick, so I went through it. And then I saw this little mattress down there. I was like, yeah, that's supposed to do something, right? So then it's like 80 stories, and so I'm just hanging around the 10th floor going like, because that's as long as the cord was. And then they lower you to the bottom, and the lady's like looking at me because one of my legs came out of the wrap, and which was not a good thing. And I don't think that was supposed to happen. So anyway, so I get down, to come back up. The guy's still on the phone with his wife, and so he's like, you know, call your wife, and I was like, nah. So I got a DVD. I came home. I went to Las Vegas. I met my wife there. She was there for a conference, and I said, here, took a shower. I said, here, watch this DVD. So she plugs the DVD in. About 3 minutes later, she comes in the bathroom screaming. She's like, what are you, stupid, man? You know, why didn't you call? You know, all this stuff, right? And she's like, why didn't you call? And I was like, so we could do this before I'm going to do a bungee jump. So that's another tip for men. Call your wife. It helps. This isn't about marriage, but anyway. All right. Okay, bungee jump. Okay, so aspiration. I'm going to go through a few slides really fast. Write this down, okay? Can you guys write that down? Okay. This is actually great. You're going to love this. This formula is how far you can see the horizon, okay? So when I talk about aspirational horizon, this is the formula. And so let me zoom in a little bit here to kind of what I'm talking about. Do you see the ship there? Yeah? Do you see the red line on the bottom? If I were standing on the ship, that is how far I could see. If I'm standing on a ship, I could see about 20 miles. This is how far the horizon is. Okay? So when I'm starting out in business, how much do I know? Do I know a lot? No, I don't know a lot. That is how far my horizon is. So when I was talking to this lady next to me, and I was describing these 300 people, I was saying, $69 cruise, that is it. These people are going crazy for a $69 cruise. That is as far as they can see. And I'm happy for that. And if I can make 1,000 $69 cruises so those people can get on it, that's all I want to do. You know why? Because maybe they'll get on the $149 dream trip next, and maybe they'll get on the $399 dream trip next, and the $599 and the $1,000 dream trip. Why? Because they're going to grow, and they're going to grow, and they're going to grow. And their aspirational horizon gets further the higher they go. In fact, here's the calculation on that formula. Do you see the bottom numbers there? That's how many feet off the ground you are, okay? And on the left, that's how many miles you can see, okay? So on the very right, if I'm 40 feet high, I can see almost 2,000 miles, okay? What does that mean for us in here? What that means, why I show this is when I was a kid standing next to a fence, I aspired to be on one of those planes. And I challenged myself ever since I was a child. This is what I wanted to do. I didn't care how I did it. It didn't matter to me. I've taken trains and buses. I just want to travel. That's all I want to do, is I just want to travel. I want to get, Sujay asked me earlier, he said, hey, how many countries you been to? 100 countries. Where's your favorite country? The next country is my favorite country. All right? My favorite book is my passport. I go through my passport. I look at my wife thinks that this is we had these fires around our house in California, and I said, there's just one envelope I want you to, the only thing I care about is this one folder, and this one folder has my passports in it that are expired. I said, that's all I care about. I can replace everything else. I just can't replace that. That's what mattered to me. All right, let's get to work now. So as I learned I grew. As I grew, I could see further. And as I saw further, I traveled greater distances, right? I had no idea about some of the places that exist that I could travel to. And I'm blessed every day for where I can travel and what I can do. I don't tell this a lot, but my first degree is in theology. I know, a lot of you are Christian in that here. Do you all know the last thing Jesus said? Go. Right? Go. So that's what I do. I go. I just do the last thing Jesus said and I go. He didn't say stay, right? I know it's Saturday, it's not Sunday yet, but I figured I'd throw that in. All right. So my question for you is, what is your aspirational horizon? What is it? How far can you see? How far can you go? Okay? All right, so that was the first part of this. I took about twice as long as I should have. But anyway, we'll go through the rest here. So in 2016, we built DreamTrips in 80 countries. We built DreamTrips in 80 countries, and we had members who traveled to 170 countries. Okay, so when you talk about Rovia or about DreamTrips, you can say, we have a worldwide group of people who travel all over the world. In fact, I don't know anyone else who has, whether it's a membership or a business of any kind, that has the kind of travel that we do. The vision for me was creating this aspirational travel. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I told this lady who was sitting next to me. All I want to do is create a product that people could sell and that they could aspire to do more of. All right, how are we doing? Okay? All right. Okay, so last year, this year, 2017, we had the paperwork for last year. Rovia was named the 40th largest travel agency in the world. So that's good. That's the first time we were out there, and so we did that. And the 18th largest leisure travel agency in the world. So that's huge. That's a pretty big deal. That's the kind of business that we do. We signed an exclusive agreement with a company called Virtuoso. Virtuoso is a $20 billion luxury travel company. $20 billion luxury travel company. A lot of you don't even know it, but the places you stay on DreamTrips, the cruises, if you take cruises, we work with more and more companies that are part of this Virtuoso network. Why? Higher levels of quality, better products, better services, better experiences for you. So that's new for us. They have about 1,700 preferred partners that will become part of the DreamTrips system. They're the top hotels, the top cruise lines, tour operators in over 100 countries. National Geographic Traveler, Condé Nast Traveler, Travel and Leisure Magazine every year do a report of the top products in travel. Virtuoso affiliated products are always the highest ones. So that's important. That was something that I felt like we needed to do. A couple of DreamTrips here that we're doing here. Kenya, right? I remember a year ago, someone's like, hey, Jim, we don't have any DreamTrips in Kenya. We have DreamTrips in Kenya now. So, and we're adding more. South Africa here. All right. So when I started as the president of Rovia a year ago, my goal was to take a look at every country and say, where are the members traveling to? What are they doing? And we just, every country we open, you got it. We're going to find where do you want to travel to, and we're going to create DreamTrips for you. Okay? I'm not suggesting we're opening in Tanzania, but I'm just saying that we do DreamTrips there as well. Because why? People travel there. Okay? And Dubai. Have many of you been to Dubai? All right, good. Several of you. Awesome. Dubai is kind of crazy. It's like a really upcoming destination. Not overly expensive. Flights are not overly expensive to get there. And I'm going to talk about flights here in a minute as well. So let's talk about some announcements now. One of the things that we learned was, how do we get to the right price point for a dream trip? So one of the things that we're going to launch coming up probably, I want to say in the next month or 2 months, are what we call these well, actually, we'll call it Dream Breaks. Okay? So in first quarter here, we'll launch these. And there are 2 nights. They're 2-night hotel stays. They don't have a host. It's not a full-on dream trip. There's not a host. There might be a welcome reception. There's generally an activity or something that's tied to it, but it's a quick breakaway. Price points are lower, makes it easier to sell when you're talking about memberships and that. So, dream trip, dream break, something that you think you'll take or you'll do? All right, great. How many of you have been on a welcome dream trip? Let me see. Okay, go ahead and yell. Okay, so roughly about a third, it sounds like about a third of you have been on a welcome dream trip. Welcome dream trips are important to us. Why? Because when you talk to someone and you want to sign them up, it's, here are the dream trips, and you're looking at the prices, and then they see a welcome dream trip, and they're like, yeah, I want to go do that one. Why? Its price is a lot lower. Well, what if every dream trip was a welcome dream trip? Okay? So the idea here is that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do these things called Welcome Dream Trips version 2. I just called it that. But you'll see that come in the next couple of months as well, where what we'll do is when you have someone you're talking to, you can just show them every dream trip and say, we're going to give you even a bigger discount on any dream trip you want to go on. Okay? Does that work for you? All right. Nobody else in the world knows this today but you. So you'll start. It all began here. So watch for the announcements on these, and I'm super excited to be able to share them here. All right, what else? On the online booking page. So I would say in the next few months we're going to make some changes in the technologies that we have. We're working on a new Dream Trip site. We're working on a new booking site. So this is an example of something that already exists where there's a new deals promotion page. You go and you can type in the country or the area you're looking for, and these special deals start showing up there. Okay? One of the things that we did earlier this year, we launched it in June, was where now we provide we have connections to the technologies that have the lowest fares globally and in each region. Okay, so why is that important? So how many of you, we didn't really announce this ahead of time because we're just still testing it, but how many of you came from Kenya on some of the reduced airfares that we had? Many of you? There were a few of you. Can you yell or just let me hear you? Okay, good. So Mark Aceta calls me a couple months ago and says, hey, we have these members that want to come from Kenya. The airfares are too high. We did this at United in April. We did this at boot camp in Budapest. And we did it here where we actually go to the airline now. We're saying, hey, we have hundreds of people traveling somewhere. Can you give us a discount? And in this particular case, it was 25% off the airfare, which is meaningful. That's something, right? And these folks were able to come then. So that's something that we're doing and we'll do more and more of. What else here? So just kind of in closing, our 2008 plan is we're gonna almost, if you take the number of dream trips that we did last year, we're gonna go up about 60% more trips in Africa over what we did last year. And we're almost gonna we're gonna actually more than double the number of rooms that we're doing because your trips just sell out so fast. All right. Mark mentioned this morning. I was saying yesterday at one of the leadership meetings that Africa has the highest discounted rates for dream trips than anywhere else in the world. So what that means is I want to say thanks to the people who build the dream trips for your area here, because they go out and they really work hard to get the best deals that we can have. So, all right. So, Africa, big growth, bright future, And I just want to say thank you again, and thank you for letting me share my story, and I always look forward to coming back and spending time with you. So thank you.